Hey guys, Paul Morrow here again for Robsdesk.org doing a big news recap for Monday, 14 July. Here we go. First of all, we got the big controversy over the Autopen, Joe Biden's Autopen. Okay, now here's the thing. The investigation and everybody commenting on it seems to be focusing on what did Joe Biden know and when did he know it? And the fact that only one pardon seems to have been signed by his own hand, although I bet you that wasn't even signed by him. But it's not an auto pen. You can see it differs from all the others. I wouldn't be surprised if Hunter Biden himself signed that pardon. I'm not even kidding. He was in and out of the White House all the time. But that said, I think people are not looking, at least if where I would look, where I'm investigating here, and that's I would look at specific pardons. And here's why. Everybody's talking about the number, and he did them all at the last minute. They pushed him through it after he lost the election, but before Donald Trump got inaugurated on 20 January. Yeah, that's all true. But I think you're going to find pay dirt if you look into individual, particularly egregious pardons here. You got Chinese spies. You have kidnapping teams. You got child killers and molesters. You got all kinds of awful, awful people who got pardoned here. And you got to ask yourself, maybe this is just a cop's read, I don't know, but you got to ask yourself why. Who advocated for these individual people? This idea that there were categories of pardons is not accurate, all right? Some of these are very idiosyncratic. They're one-offs. That means that somebody in the Democratic apparatus had to come to the White House and say, take care of my guy. Get this guy off of death row. Pardon this guy. Why and how? And I got to say, it feels to me like it was big donors asking for favors that were brought to them. So either they're saying, hey, you want money out of me for the midterms, so for the next presidential election, take care of my guy here. Somebody came to those donors and said, hey, can you help me out? That's what I'd be looking for. Did money change hands? Was money promised, or was there a promise to withhold money if somebody didn't get what they wanted? And I would start with the really bad ones where any sentient human being would look at it and say, how the hell did you pardon this guy? And then backtrack from there. And I think you're going to find some really dirty stuff. That's where I would go rather than trying to figure out when Joe Biden lost his mind, because nobody knows when Joe Biden lost his mind. It may have happened before he even got into office because of the way he campaigned by hiding in the basement. All right, let's move on. Number two, Russia. Big story today. Donald Trump is saying he's going to tariff Russia 100% in 50 days. And he sold a bunch of patriots to Europe by through the auspices of NATO. The last part of that, an elegant solution, because that way it doesn't look like we paid for them. Although if you drill down far enough and you look at who funds who, we always end up paying this stuff. At best, it's our own money coming back to us. But that said, I don't think tariffs are going to work. They'd ever seem to with Russia. They pride themselves, the Russians, on being able to endure anything for the fatherland. They're very patriotic. Putin will sacrifice an entire generation, he realistically already has, to try to reconstitute the Soviet Union, which is all he cares about. That's his mindset as a Soviet apparatchik coming up in the KGB regime. So that's where he's going. So what will work? I don't advocate anything offensive against Russia, but the only thing they're going to understand, and I don't like it either, but is a fully militarized Europe through the auspices of NATO. NATO keeps the thing strong. All Donald Trump is doing here is returning NATO to first principles. This is why NATO exists, is to bottle up Russia. And I don't really give a shit at this point. If, oh, well, you blew it back with Gorbachev, perestroika didn't work, and it was supposed to work, and Clinton was too hard on them, and all sort of crap. I don't really care. It's not my problem that the Russians couldn't take to democracy. That's not my issue. Right now, we have to recognize they are a global threat, and they're aligned with the worst actors on the planet, including North Korea, Iran, and China. And so at this point, you got to get tough, bottle them up, and I think this thing is going to get a lot hotter before it gets any cooler. At the end of the day, the world is a big schoolyard. And Donald Trump understands that, and there's a lot of bullies in this schoolyard. And every now and then, they're going to need a sock in the nose. And we're not the bullies, by the way. Is Donald Trump taking Greenland? Is Donald Trump taking back the Panama Canal? No. What he has done is stopped wars in Africa, on the Indian subcontinent, between Pakistan and India, and he's trying to stop one in Europe. But I think, frankly, the only thing that's going to work here is if the Russians, at some point, feel a little bit of heat from the West. It's the only thing that worked last time. Last things real quick. A French judge has ruled that all Gazans are refugees who should be allowed into France. Good. Do it. I think it works for everybody, as long as they don't come here. Although as outrageous as it seems, that's 2 million people, over 2 million, drop in a bucket compared to what we got through the southern border. And lastly, let's just recognize how egregious it is that Zamdani may be the New York mayor for the 25th anniversary of 9/11.